Obviously, last few years, everybody knows has been quite traumatic for the industry and for people in general. Um, Starting with, the industry went through quite a high in 17, 18 and 18, 19. The downtrend started even well before the pandemic in 1920 with, the market being quite low. So obviously we'll talk about the pandemic in more detail, but specifically coming to last year, all our planning was done pre-second wave as such. So when the year started, it was, quite a shock to the system. The first 1.5 months was essentially a write-off. But the year has turned out surprisingly well, given where it started, right? Consumer sentiment and honestly, volume levels have gone up consistently through the year. There have obviously been quite a few headwinds with chip shortages, commodity increases, supply chain constraints, and both domestic as well as for our export segments, right? So it's had quite a big impact. Really, we've seen in the last few months quite a big uptick in the market on the domestic front across all segments. And we play in the passenger car segment, UVs, commercial vehicle segment, as well as in tractors. Right? I know two-wheelers is a different story, but all these segments domestically have seen a good pickup, and our export markets have also seen quite a bit of stability. Right? Yeah. So the year as such, we've seen quite a bit of growth relative to last year. There is, of course, an aspect of all our top lines, which is just material cost escalation. But, so while volumes have not recovered in any of the segments to where we had in 18, 19, definitely there's a lot of optimism that we will get there. Passenger cars are picking up well, UVs are really selling well. There's backlogs in many segments. On the CV side, we're actually seeing quite a bit of uptick. I think with 2 years of low buying, fleets are starting to fill up again. Yeah, so while we would have closed, FY 21-22 just shy of about 5,000 crores top line, right? The coming year, we are seeing growth of close to 20% on the top line, right? Part of it, again, is material cost that has happened. But definitely we see volume growth, and it's quite balanced across all segments for us. So between passenger car, UV, commercial vehicle, aftermarket, as well as our foundry business, it's very well balanced in all segments. Yeah, it's been a time of introspection, but not just because of the pandemic for us. I think from a Brakes India's perspective, there's been quite a few structural changes that we've gone through in the last year and a half, right? As you know, one of the things that has changed is we have had within the TVS family itself a little bit of a separation, which has gone very well and smoothly. And I think this alignment of ownership and management is something that has gone very well with our family, and I think it really gives us a more positive outlook on the future, more agility to do what we need. The bigger change that we've had is since its inception in 1962, Brakes India has been a joint venture, right? It was initially formed with a UK company called Lucas, which changed hands to TRW and most recently ZF. Unfortunately, because of other global acquisitions that were made, ZF was asked to divest their share in Brakes India. So over the course of last year, our family essentially bought out the entire 49% of ZF's shareholding in Brakes India. So we are no longer a joint venture. So we are 100% owned by the Indian promoter group. There is, however, longer continuity with ZF. We will continue some of those relationships, both on product as well as on some of our process technology. But it does open up a lot of avenues for us. One very positive thing is, we've always had a strong in-house R&D. While TRW and ZF supported us on technology, they also supported us to localize and develop our own engineering. So we have a team of over 200 engineers. We have made investments over the last 25 years in the latest technology for braking testing, braking validation, as well as design. We have a high-speed ABS test track located about 2 hours south of Chennai. And we're constantly upgrading, right? So for us, Um, the last 4 years has actually been quite a big roadmap of technology upgradation. We knew some of the support from our partner would go away, so we've done a lot of work to become self-reliant on technology. So whether it's on conventional products, whether it's our foundation brakes that we make, but more importantly on electronics, and looking forward, we made a lot of investment. Um, so we can talk a little bit more in detail on passenger cars. I think the trends that are coming up are obviously going towards EVs, electric actuators for brakes, just from a convenience perspective. So we have both licensed products we can offer, but also our own developed products in the space that are coming out. I think over the course of the next year, we will see a few announcements from us in that space. On the commercial vehicle side, we were very strongly a foundation brake player. We made S-cam drum brakes for trucks. We have our air disc brake for trucks and buses. But when it goes into the air system for brakes, the air brake system as such, we've actually made huge investments over the last 3 years, from team to engineering design infrastructure, and most recently with a full-fledged plant that is coming up in Tamil Nadu. So with this investment of close to 150 crores in the space, we are entering the market in the coming year. We've already entered into the aftermarket, but into the OE space, we are working with OEMs for the right platforms that they have. So by the end of this year, I think we'll be in full stream production for that as well. So I would say it's honestly been, the last 2 years have been a very, very exciting time. Challenging, of course, doing new work in the middle of a pandemic, especially working with customers and engagement. But they've been extremely supportive, and we're very optimistic on multiple fronts here. So the few things the pandemic highlights for us. One is, I think a common thread across many players would be the digitization story. Right? For us, it had started before, but the pace at which it's gone over the last 1.5, 2 years has really accelerated. While there was a need and an aspiration to get there, COVID has accelerated that tremendously. Right? So we understand that whether it's from design all the way to shop floor, or whether it's for our supply chain, whether it's for our aftermarket distributors, it just makes things so much easier to have a completely digitized system. And that's something that has changed for us. The second aspect is, we get caught up a lot with, group meetings, discussion time. So I think people having their space to work by themselves without the distraction of too many meetings has given us the impetus to, trim back on that front, and honestly get a little bit more productive with, co-work that people do. So that has been a little bit of a change. Also, I think customers have become very accepting of virtual meetings, which has, made things in some cases more efficient, but the relationship is still critical. So I think travel will come back. I would say the last thing, which is quite, personal for many of us, is when you're in a manufacturing company, work from home is not something you can do on a long-term basis, right? When the lockdown was first announced in March 2020, within a month of that, essential industries started opening. So agriculture was one of them. So, we have a plant where we make brakes for tractors, and I can just tell you, the commitment of our workers who are in the factory, right? You truly understand the value of how they have really put in blood and sweat into making our country run through this entire 2 years, right? So they did not have buses to come, they did not have trains to come, they were caught by police when they were coming on the two-wheelers. So it was just a huge stress, but they still came. They stayed in a hostel close to the factory, worked through complete lockdown, right? So essential stuff to maintain the locations, the essential products we had to make. So it's truly a recognition and kind of a admiration for the strength that we have. On the passenger car segment for us, I think, which is the most technology dependent as such, we have completely localized our entire core product portfolio of foundation braking, booster mass cylinders. We're well on top of that. Where we have been focusing our efforts in the last 2 years as such, and where our roadmap has to develop is in the space of electric vehicles. As we go to non-ICE engines, the vacuum that was traditionally boosting brake system is gone. So there's a lot of work going on with electric boosters, electronic control systems on top of those. So we are actually well underway to develop what is called a e-booster, right? And over the course of the next year, as I said, we will have announcements in the space. So that I think we're quite excited about. The other aspect is electrically actuated brakes, right? At the foundation for parking, you typically have the handbrake lever that you pull. More recently, vehicles have gone to electric park brakes. So whether it's on a caliper or a drum brake, it's just a button you press. It has a lot of automated features like holding you on a hill. Even when you try to drive the car away, if a door is open, it can stop it from driving with a door open. So there's a lot of safety as well as comfort features. Like you said, people are becoming more feature oriented than cost oriented. So these are things that we can add as features in a car. And our team is again well underway of development of this. We are actually quoting on 1 or 2 RFQs and 1 or 2 global RFQs in this space. So that is very encouraging for us. But most critically in the light vehicle space, I think our core portfolio doesn't go through a significant change. We are making the enhancements for noise, efficiency and loss that EVs will demand. So that gives us the opportunity with our core portfolio to go to other geographies. And that is going to be one of the big areas of focus for us on the tech space. On commercial vehicles, when I talked about, it's actually an addition of a completely new product portfolio. So going from our traditional foundation braking, we are going into the air control systems. This, I think, has been extremely enlightening for our entire management team in the company on how quickly we moved in this space. Right, literally in 3 years, we have gone from zero to validated product. Our air braking systems are currently running on multiple trucks, validated over 1 million kilometers, right? And we will have OE contracts in the next 6 months. This is the fastest we have gone from concept to OEM acceptance, right, ever. So I think that is also extremely encouraging, and for us gives us the impetus, like you said, to go, the self-confidence to develop a product not just for India but globally as well, right? On the foundry side, we are probably one of the leading iron foundries in India with respect to safety critical parts, right? We export close to 50%, 60% of our castings. 1 in 4 cars in Europe probably drives with a Brakes India casting for its safety critical brakes, right? So there we are actually looking at a lot more. There is a lot more we can do on metallurgy and technology. We're working with global partners there to support us on that enhancement. We will also have to look at footprints outside of India. We already have a plant in Oman. We will have to look at other locations for where we can support our customers. The big change I think that will come for being a global player is the push for sustainability. This is a big mandate that is coming from Europe. I think we've seen with the Paris Climate Accord and recently the COP26, where carbon neutrality will be a big push. So we've already started working on that front on sustainability. So one is energy, going towards green energy for wind, solar, other renewable sources. The second aspect is all other materials, right? So whether it's our packing material that we work on, whether it's sand in the foundry, everything we're just trying to get into a closed loop, recyclable system. So water conservation has become a big focus. So all these things are areas that, not product technology, but essentially process and manufacturing technology that we need to enable. So this is actually a soul-searching question that our entire management team did very recently, right? And there's a few answers I can give on this front. So India is recognized as a low-cost country for manufacture, right? So the problem becomes when global OEMs look at sourcing here, they struggle a little bit to find the right partner who can meet their standards on quality, product development, but also on there is an aspect of value systems, sustainability, other things that they look at. So from our perspective, because of the value system of the group, as well as working with global partners for a very long time, we are actually truly able to deliver Indian cost structure, right, with global delivery capability, right? And we've demonstrated this in our foundry business, in our commercial vehicle capability, and in light vehicle. I think for us to be able to go now and showcase this to customers is much easier, right? And there is a huge opportunity there for us. So why would somebody look at us? I think it's part of that, which is an Indian localized company which is able to play on a global stage. The second aspect that we strive to is our level of customer service. We are a little bit more agile. We play in braking. We're not a matrixed global organization that is hard to deal with in some ways. But we have to get better, right? Product development lead times have to go down. And if we look in the future, the OEM structure is also changing. There are a lot of new, smaller EV startups coming up. And for a very large global MNC to serve them is challenging, right? When it's small volumes with a lot of attention needed, they don't have that interest. So we think there are many new niche players that we can tap into, and also some of the larger OEM contracts we are pursuing. Now, aftermarket is very close to our heart in braking. As a safety critical product, we've always pushed higher quality products for the aftermarket, right? We know there are, very small manufacturers, sometimes spurious parts in the market, and those are places where, competition in the past has been quite challenging. Now, a few things have changed structurally in India, right? One is GST has come about, which levels the playing field quite a bit for national players, right? It just gives them access across the country. The second thing is, I think the ability to have a brand nationally has really increased. So we are seeing tremendous increase in demand for our products, especially in markets which were typically considered, low cost, spurious markets. We are seeing a shift in the market. I think the value, the price to the value you get, that equation is starting to change. So I would say the proportion of, smaller, non-validated products in the market as such is coming down. There is also an aspect, I think the government's regulation for safety is playing an aspect to this. So I think that is getting into people's minds that it is worthwhile to invest in a good, safe product there. So that is one aspect of our brand and product pool that is going on. But if you look at what we have been doing in the aftermarket, availability is a big portion of solving this problem. If we are in the right counters, when a mechanic goes in, we manage to sell, right? Whether it's on quality or brand reputation, we manage to sell. So we have been pushing availability. We have been going, getting our distributors to put up branches in new locations. So that has been one big focus for us. We have our own people across the nation who are, both talking to mechanics about the value of the product as well as to retailers, which has created some of that pull. So small steps, but we are, as you said, the aftermarket is quite a big opportunity, and I think we've done traditionally well in that space over the last 25, 30 years, and for us, I think it'll continue to be a place of strong investment. We also recently created our own friction business unit as such. We always had friction products that we offered under the Apache brand name. But now I think we've given it a little bit more autonomy and allowed them to get much faster about product development, catering to the needs. So that is also seeing quite a bit of success. Export aftermarket will be a next frontier for us. So for product like braking, BS6 was not a big change, right? The thing that really changed for us is most OEMs came up with new platforms during the introduction of BS6. So for us, there was a lot of re-engineering, but it's similar products that we offered, right? So it wasn't as big a transition for us as for many of the engine side or emission side players. EV will be the next transition for us. Again, not so dramatically as it is obviously for the engine or emission side, but as you go towards EV, I think the focus becomes a lot more on comfort, features, so noise, addressing some of those issues, economy of our braking system, lower loss braking systems will become more critical for us. But these technology changes, while we are quite ready to adapt, don't make a huge impact on braking as such. So I would say for us, it was relatively easy to get past those hurdles. Export, we are very bullish, right? And recently I was at the giving a talk at the Indian Foundry Congress, and one thing that has been really positive is India is actually a place of relative stability in the globe over the last year and a half, right? And we are a large enough economy to cater to some part of global need. We have relative stability in policy as well as international relationship. So I'm very bullish and quite optimistic for India, growing on the global stage. I don't want to make any grand statements because there are always hurdles that will come in the way. But for our team as well as our immediate 5-year plan, we might be a strong player in the Indian market, right? But when you look at us on the global stage, we're a marginal player. So just to make a little bit of headroom there, if we can get a few percentage of share, that for us is very meaningful growth and really motivating for our team. So we're looking at exports being a big driver for growth. We are working actively to supplement our teams to work with global customers right now. So I think many Indian companies will be able to benefit from this. PLI has been put in place. Many companies have latched onto that. So I think for us, next 5 to 10 years is a great opportunity for India as such. OE customers across the globe, there'll be over 10 that we serve. Some of them we serve directly, some of them through our partners, right? We have experience. The big change that has happened is most global OEMs now have relatively strong presences in India, either for their local brands or as international purchasing offices, right? So you take Volkswagen, you take Ford, you take Stellantis, right? They all have teams that are based out of India that are actively looking at growing the Indian supplier base. So while we serve them in India, we have been in active discussions with their international purchase offices, Renault Nissan, of course, as well. And so if you look at the immediate, for us, Europe is already a very big export location. We do almost 800 crores of exports to Europe. So that will be the natural, easy step. We also have quite a few links with Japanese customers, either through Indian partners. DICV has Mitsubishi Fuso in its portfolio. So working through some of the relationships we already have, we are looking at strengthening our market in Europe, potentially in Southeast Asia. Japan might be an opportunity. So those are things we're firming up, exactly where and how we play. But Europe and Southeast Asia will be on the roadmap for us. US, we already serve customers in the US. We have both from our light vehicle side as well as foundry side exports to the US. I think we'll firm it up. I think it's where we will go where it's easiest for us to follow on first. North America is, for us in an exploratory stage. We are determining how we work effectively there. The challenges become, of course, from India to US, the logistics are a challenge. Supply chain constraints have proved challenging at certain times. So maybe it's a second phase for us, but active exploration. It's a very tough question to chew on, right? So India has a very bad track record of road accidents and road deaths. Unfortunately, that is the case. If you look at the reasons for it, right, there are, I'll just break it down to 3 different things. One is Definitely product safety, which has been a big point of focus and regulation in the recent past. The second is there's a cultural aspect to it, right? And the third one is infrastructural, right? And all three need to come together for us to make a sizable impact on our issue of road accidents and road deaths, right? Um, so I'll just give you a few pictures, right? The government has done a lot, and we are, I think, appreciated the fact that they recognize this as an issue and they are actively tackling it. So whether it is introduction of ABS, whether it's introduction of airbags, the safety rating system that follows a global NCAP, all these are fantastic efforts to shore up product safety, right? But at the end of the day, our products are quite safe now, right? Um, Recently, there was also a mandate for side airbags, right? So safety is actually quite high, and many companies have gotten five-star ratings on their cars, which is global ratings, right? So this is amazing, and it really gives our companies an opportunity to sell their vehicles in other geographies. Where I think we still have work to do is on the cultural and infrastructure portions. Infrastructure is changing, right? I will admit the government has done a lot here. Divided highways is a huge issue. Um, but what do you do? You have helmet mandates, but we know compliance is an issue, right? Um, Marriage season in the villages, you see a tractor with two trailers attached to it, 80 people in that. And all it takes is a undivided highway and a truck to be coming the opposite direction, and we know what happens, right? So, you know, safety is, I think, paramount, but we need to focus on all three levers, right? So I think in terms of product safety, we have done a lot, right? Infrastructural safety, having turn lanes in highways, divided highways is happening, but will take many more years for us to get there. The cultural safety is something that we really have to make a difference on. So, if I was to just take an overall picture, I think product safety, we shouldn't be doing too much more to load on the cost of the car, because the cost of the vehicles becomes high, the engineering effort for the vehicles becomes far higher. So we become less agile as an industry, right? So I think without focusing too much just purely on product, which is easy to change, right, from a certain perspective, we do need to look at the other two aspects of infrastructure as well as cultural safety aspects. So if you look at how government has come up with policy, right, I think they have done a lot, right? And in some aspects, it was a little bit of shock to the industry. If you look at how BS6 happened, right, it was a little bit of shock to the industry. And it's fine, the industry can deal with some shocks, but not too many shocks, right? And it has gone through a lot of shocks in the last 4 years. So while I think the government is also now being very positive on how they are approaching policy change, working very well with the industry right now, right? The flex fuel policy, for example, gives a lot of flexibility for OEMs as well as other parties to look at the right approach to get to a certain end state without mandating exactly how we get there, right? Even on the safety side, I think with NCAP in place, there's an incentive to make your product safer without mandating it to be safer necessarily. So I think we're in a very good place. The government's understanding, as you said, has really meshed well in the last 1 or 2 years with how the industry can also support this change. So whether they need to mandate, ESP and ADAS, I don't think so, right? As long as we have the right incentives to get there, I think government mandates will actually hurt potentially domestic players in some ways, make innovation harder in some ways by just following exact standards from other countries, right? So I think we need to form a roadmap that helps global players as well as domestic players evolve in the market in the right way. And I think they're being quite prudent, quite practical about how they're approaching it in the next 2 to 3 years. Okay, so the negatives you've called out, right? I think the headwinds you've called out. Growth drivers, I alluded to some of this in the past. I think there are two aspects. One is, I think, government support, right? I think our transition to GST, Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think has been a big support. The PLI scheme, Make in India, the entire push for self-reliance, I think has really given the focus for all of us to invest, focus on how we can get better, right? Um, so I think the government has done a good job of positioning us as a country that can become a much stronger player on the global stage. That is number one, right? I think we have a strong base to work on. Um, the second aspect is I think there are a lot of supply chain instabilities. I think we are seeing a big push for China plus one globally, right? And just given the geopolitical scenario, I think that is the second aspect that will support India going forward. The last one is up to Indian players themselves, right? I think with the economy growing, with many players scaling up at least nationally, I think we have the scale now. Not everyone, right? There are still many subscale players that are struggling in the Indian market, especially with the commodity increases. It is just hard for them to see the future and growth ahead because they are struggling with so many problems today. But for players with scale, and you're seeing announcements every few weeks of somebody who's either setting up globally, acquiring a company globally, right? There are deals happening where Indian players are looking at, assets internationally. So I think we have gotten to a scale where Indian companies can look at some of that. And when we talked about what will help BRICS India succeed, I think this is one of the key things is being able to leverage a strong Indian supply base, a strong Indian workforce, while being able to serve global demands like a global player would, right? You have the process controls, you have the quality standards, you need the code of conduct on employee value systems, you need the code of conduct on sustainability. So if you can bridge, I think, having the localized operational capability with having a more MNC international face, I think that is really the formula we need to look at for companies succeeding. It's been 60 years of um, really a successful company being built. And if you look at the next, we just had a senior leadership team discussion regarding the next 5 years. This will hold good for a longer duration. Our opportunities ahead are so much more, right, in the next 5 years, next 10 years than they've ever been, right? And our team is literally the most optimistic and excited to be in this position today, right? Than I think we've ever been. To feel the opportunities ahead and get the team excited is fantastic. So if you look at where we are focusing, we discussed some of this. I think technology self-reliance, we know we can do it, right? We've already started over the last few years, but to really own it and say, we have everything that a customer needs self-developed will be a big focus for us, right? And we have a distance to go, right? I will not pretend that today we can compete with every MNC on technology, no, right? But we will compete on slightly different levers combined with technology. Whether it's our flexibility or agility or small scale, we will have to combine that with where we are technically to compete. The second is we have invested in the last 20, 30 years to work with every MNC that has come in India. So from a process, quality, capability perspective, we can work with the best of them, right? So that is the second lever of confidence for us, is that if we can work with their teams in India, we can work with their teams anywhere, right? There is some cultural bridging to be done for us, and we will see the best way to do that, whether it's having footprints outside of India or not. But that is the second area where our team is very gung-ho, and it's already bearing fruit, right? We've kickstarted some initiatives in the last 2 years, and global business is going to come our way, right? And the third one is our story of digitization. I think that is going to be a big area for us to scale in a sustainable way. So whether it's from our design offices to our factories, we already have 15 locations across India. I expect this will grow over time to international locations. So being able to go from design to shop floor needs to be quite seamless, and as well as our supply chain. So those are areas, I think, pillars that we will rely on for the next few years of growth. Um, we are still a people oriented company, so I think for us the motivation of the teams is very critical, and that is something right now, if you ask me, I could not be happier, right, with how we're approaching the market.